Okay, welcome to this video where we'll be doing a listening lesson. It is a lesson in that we will be stopping the audio, we might be going back in the audio, we'll be looking at new vocabulary up on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll be basically discussing things as if we are in a listening lesson. If you want an actual exam where you will go from A to B to C to D, all at the same time as a real exam, this is not the video for you. I would recommend that you get hold of this book. This is book number 16, test number 1, part number. Get hold of the book, get hold of the audio, and do the exam under exam conditions. Or you can look at some of my other videos. Many of my other videos, the purple colored ones on my channel, are for that style of listening, where you will do it under exam conditions. This orange colored one is more for listening, a listening lesson. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, let's get started on part 3 then. Remember that we've got 30 seconds between the end of part 2 and the end of part 3. The same applies in part 1 to part 2 and part 3 and part 4. There's 30 seconds for you to check your answers from the previous section. But I would recommend that you only spend about 10 seconds quickly checking your answers, and then those other 20 seconds left, you should be going into activating your schemata. Remember, that means activating your world knowledge about what you're about to hear. So you're going to be looking at any clues you can get from the question that will help you to get the answers later on, or at least get your brain ready to hear what is going to be spoken about. So let's quickly have a look at that. We'll go back to we'll go to where it says.
That is the end of part 2.
Okay, so we've got some time.
You now have half a minute to check your answers to part 2.
So imagine we're checking the answers and then we go here. Okay. Okay, to art projects. Art projects. Jason Top and Green were useful. Okay, that's 2. Is it? Challenge the proposals.
Part 3. You will hear 2 students called Jess and Tom discussing their art projects. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 24.
Specific. Adding a video. Time mind map. Making notes more valued. Change the proposals. Again.
Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 24.
Okay, so in the real exam, obviously, I have to go straight into starting this. But what we're going to do now is just sort of activate our schemata. Try to this is a listening lesson, obviously, so we're trying to do this a bit slower than the real exam and the exam conditions. And so what we're looking at here is how can I get my brain ready to hear what I'm going to say? So there's going to be 2 people talking. This is very typical for part 3, 2 students, or sometimes 3 students, or sometimes 2 students and a lecturer discussing things in an academic setting. So something related to academics. And so you can see that this is an art project from maybe a school or a college. And we can see that they're talking about birds and natural history, which is animals. So there's something to do with animals. We're going to be hearing animals and art together, I am assuming here. It's unusual that they would Natural History Museum visit. It's an unusual place to take an art student, but and certainly a bird park is unusual. Maybe the Natural History Museum is a beautiful piece of architecture, but the bird park, you got to think that there's probably something related to animals here. And if we look back down here as well, anything that we can expect to hear. So they've got proposals. So there's a key word here. A proposal is something that you usually write. It's a plan about what I'm going to do, and I send in my proposal, perhaps to, in this case, to the teacher or the lecturer, and say, this is what I plan to focus on in my artwork. What do you think? And the lecturer or the teacher will evaluate it, and then yes, you go ahead and you do that art project. Okay, and this is about changing the proposals. And okay, keyword here, rationale, not keyword, but important word, is the reasons behind something. So what is your rationale for doing something? And pronunciation is al, it's a French word, rationale. So what is your rationale for doing something? What is your reasons for doing it? Any other new words? Evaluative, more evaluative notes. That means that they should be, the notes should be more, well, they should evaluate their own work more than just stating facts, for example. So I'm looking at my own mind and my own thinking. It might be in this case more evaluative. Okay. And any other words that I think the rest you should be able to understand from there. It's just these slightly more difficult words in the second part of this. Okay. So there's two things we're looking for: A and B, or C and E, or D and A. Okay, and the same thing down here as well. Okay, so let's start listening.
How are you getting on with your art project, Tom?
Okay. Like, they gave us the theme of birds to base our project on, and I'm not really all that interested in wildlife.
Okay, so here we've got what we were thinking. Good to guess before and then double check later on. So we're double checking and making sure it's clear. Yes, it's about birds. For Tom, at least. They gave us. I'm assuming they're both in the same class, so maybe this is for the benefit of the audience that they're saying they gave us, because obviously Jess knows that they gave us this theme of birds, if she's in the same class. So it's for the benefit of us that we know that they have been forced to do an art project related to birds. Okay. So.
But I'm starting to get into it.
Okay, so yeah, initially he said, I'm not that into wildlife. Wildlife, another word for animals. But I'm starting to get into it. Something that I'm starting to be interested in.
I've pretty well finished the introductory stage.
Okay, now we've got the keyword here, the introductory stage. So we need to have our ears starting to listen carefully. There might be something that they're going to say about what is useful about the introductory stage of this whole process.
So have I. When they gave us all those handouts with details of books and websites to look at.
Okay, keyword there, handouts. There it is. When they gave us the handouts, it sounded like, just from the tone of her voice, when they gave us all those books and handouts, you expect it to be a negative thing she's going to say. So let's listen.
I was really put off.
Okay, put off, disappointed. We're not put off, let's not say, not disappointed, that's not the correct word. Put off is when you don't want to move forward, you don't want to continue, you don't want to carry on. So she was really put off when she saw all those handouts and those sources.
But the more I read, the more interested I got.
Okay, so that's a typical IELTS type sentence. I was disappointed, but however, nevertheless, something contrasting, a contrasting linker. I enjoyed it. So although initially she said she was put off, and I might have crossed out E, she says but, so I'm gonna wait, because that's a typical thing for an IELTS to do. So because I know the tricks that the IELTS examiners use, I think possibility E might be one of them. But let's listen a bit more.
Me too.
Me too. Okay, agree. Okay, keyword there.
I found I could research so many different aspects of birds in art. Colour, movement, texture. So I was looking forward to the bird park visit.
Okay, I found I could research. So from all these handouts that they got and the research notes that they got, he was able to do all this research about it, and he was getting excited to visit the bird park. But again, listen to the tone of his voice. Let's just go back a little bit. This is the sort of thing this is the sort of thing you should be starting to get used to, because if you hear the tone of voice, you know that they're going to be disappointed, and therefore the word useful might not be for A. But listen, let's go back and listen to the tone of
I found I could research so many different aspects of birds in art. Colour, movement, texture.
Yeah, I'm getting excited. Color, movement, texture. But listen.
So I was looking forward to the bird park visit.
What a letdown.
So she kicks in. What a letdown. Okay, and that comes from a phrasal verb, to let somebody down. Usually it's a person. So if I let somebody down, it means that I leave them disappointed. Okay, and a letdown, technically actually there should be a hyphen there. A letdown is a noun from that phrasal verb. A letdown is a situation that makes you feel disappointed after it. So he sets it up like, I was looking forward to this, and then something bad happened. Let's listen for what the problem was at the bird park visit.
It poured with rain and we...
It poured with rain. It rained a lot. Pour, to pour water from a jug or from a cup or from a mug or anything. You deliberately pour something. But if it pours with rain, it means it has a lot of rain coming down.
We hardly saw a single bird.
You hardly saw a single bird. People didn't want to go out into the rain, or the birds didn't want to come out of their little shelters, something like that. And so that we can pretty much be sure is to be taken out, because there was nothing to be seen. So it wasn't useful.
Much less used than the trip to the Natural History Museum.
Yeah.
Much less used. Okay, well, they've moved on to the Natural History Museum, but I've never heard that expression, much less used. Much less useful, maybe. Let me just listen again. Back a bit more.
Poured with rain and we hardly saw a single bird. Much less used than the trip to the Natural History Museum.
Okay, I don't know. I need to see what the tape script is there, but as a native speaker, I don't know what she just said there, so it's a bit weird. But we can imagine she means it's not as useful as the Natural History Museum visit. Okay, so what happened at the Natural History Museum visit she's moved on to?
Yeah. I liked all the stuff about evolution there.
I liked all the stuff about evolution there. Okay, so he agrees that that's useful. Evolution from dinosaurs to birds, birds from dinosaurs, I assume, and other things.
The workshop sessions with Dr. Fletcher were good too.
The workshop sessions were good too. Okay.
Especially the brainstorming sessions.
Ah, I missed those because I was ill.
Okay, whoops. All right, so it sounds like she went to the museum, but she didn't go to the brainstorming sessions with this doctor.
I wish we could have seen the projects last year's.
Okay, because she was sick. So, because she said much less used, whatever that word means, much less useful than the Natural History Museum. So she must have been there, but for some reason she didn't go to those lectures because she was sick. So, that's a tricky one. They agree that's useful. The visit itself, not necessarily the whole visit. Well, he doesn't agree that he agrees that this is a really tricky one. Did she go to the Natural History Museum or not? I think the key word that used, much less used, which I've never heard before, is really throwing me on this one. But I am, yeah. When I edit this video, I will put the actual tape script about what was used there, what was said there, and talk about it if it is necessary. But I think this is also out because she didn't go to the useful. According to Tom, he found the workshops useful. She wasn't there because she was sick. And I'm gonna say that C is out. Okay,
Students did.
I
sorry, I was talking over that.
sessions.
Ah, I missed those because I was ill. I wish we could have seen the projects last year's students did.
I wish. We know that grammar. I wish means something that you would like to have happened. I wish I had seen, or we could have seen. So it didn't happen. Therefore, that is definitely out because they didn't see them. Wonder why. Let's see. Did they say anything more?
I suppose they want us to do our own thing, not copy.
Okay, well, there you go. So they don't want them copying what the others had done the previous year.
Have you drafted your proposal yet?
Ah, okay. Sorry. There, the workshop sessions. Are they not part of the same? So Natural History Museum visit and the workshop sessions were in the same time? Okay. Okay. I see what's happening. Well, this is a tricky one. That's a very tricky one. So we can take that one out. She missed the workshop sessions, but she did visit the Natural History Museum because she's just started talking about the proposals, right? So we're moving on to questions 23 and 24. That's a really, really tricky one. Yeah. Welcome to the IELTS. Part 3 and Part 4 starts getting tricky even for me as a native speaker. And again, that keyword much less used. Be careful with using that word. I don't know if I'm using it correctly or if there's some other word that I should be knowing. Anyway, so she was put off initially, but but later on was happy with that. She didn't attend the workshop sessions, so she can't have been there. But it sounds like she went to the History Museum. I thought that the workshop sessions at the History Museum was one and the same, but maybe I misheard. Let's just listen to it one more time. Let's just see if maybe.
Or a single bird. Much less used than the trip to the Natural History Museum.
Yeah. I liked all the stuff about evolution there.
I like the stuff about evolution there. Still talking about the Natural History Museum.
The workshop sessions with Dr. Fletcher were good too.
Okay. Wow. So the word to, I mean, because of the intonation, again, we're going with the intonation, it sounds like he's still talking about the workshop sessions at the Natural History Museum, which is what's throwing me off. His intonation and the word to as well, so all of that together making me sound like it's all part of the Natural History Museum visit, but it's not. The workshop sessions are another, well, I'm not very happy with this one. They haven't made it easy. Okay, but now they're moving on to proposals.
Especially the brainstorming sessions.
Ah, I missed those because I was ill. I wish we could have seen the projects last year's students did.
I suppose they want us to do our own thing, not copy.
Have you drafted your proposal yet?
Yes, but I haven't handed it in. I need to amend some parts.
Okay, so I need to amend. There's another word for change. I need to amend some parts. Have you handed it in yet? No, I need to change some things. And they're going to change them, both of them. Okay, Jess and Tom will both make changes.
I've realised the notes from my research are almost all just descriptions.
Okay, there's the word notes. They're just descriptions. And I'm assuming that they should be more evaluative, looking at the process of, how do I say this? The process of creating the project, evaluating yourself. I'm assuming that's what he's going to say. Let's listen carefully.
I haven't actually evaluated anything.
Okay, there it is. So I've just made descriptions, but I haven't evaluated what I'm looking at and said this is useful, this isn't, reasons why it's useful, reasons why I prefer to do it this way, that way. That's evaluation.
So I'll have to fix that.
And does she agree?
Oh, I didn't know we had to do that.
Okay, so she's realizing that she probably should be doing the same thing, so I'm assuming it's going to be E.
I'll have to look at that too.
Okay, there we go. So that's one of them. Sorry, let's just make it clear. All right. And let's carry on.
Did you do a timeline for the project?
Yes, and a mind map.
Okay, so we've got D over here, providing a timeline and a mind map. Did she?
Yeah, so did I.
Okay, but this is about changing, all right? So it's important. So it cannot be D because they've already done that. They're not changing anything.
I quite enjoyed that. But it was hard having to explain the basis for my decisions in my action plan.
What?
You know, give a rationale.
It was hard having to give a rationale for my action plan. So Jess is saying it was hard to do that. She's already done it, so she doesn't need to change anything. But it sounds like Tom will need to change that. But remember, the key word here is both of them. So I'm assuming A is going to be out as well. Let's listen.
I didn't realize we had to do that. Okay, I can add it now. And I've done
Okay, so she doesn't reply to that. So it's A is out.
the video diary presentation and worked out what I want my outcome to be in the project.
Sorry, I didn't hear the first bit of that.
Didn't realize we had to do that. Okay, I can add it now. And I've done the video diary presentation
So he's done this already.
and worked out what I want my outcome to be in the project.
Someone told me it's best not to be too precise about your actual outcome at this stage.
Okay, so she doesn't even reply to his thing about the video diary. She's talking about the outcome. Someone said that they don't need to be specific about the outcome. Let's listen to it again.
I want my outcome to be in the project.
Someone told me it's best not to be too precise about...
Best not to be too precise, less specific. So the keyword there, sorry, spelling mistake there, precise. Don't be so precise with the outcome. Be less specific with the outcome. Be exact, not be so exact. Okay.
about your actual outcome at this stage, so you have more scope to explore your ideas later on. So I'm going to go back to my proposal to make it a bit more vague.
Really?
A bit more vague. Okay, that's the opposite word. Precise, the opposite is vague. Okay. And he sounds like he's about to do the same.
Really? Okay, I'll change that too then.
Okay, so we've got B and E. This was a little bit easier, this one. Okay.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 25 to 30.
Which personal meaning? Personal meaning. Each of the following pictures. Personal meanings. Okay, there they are. So childhood memory, hope for the future, fast movement, potential threat, power of color, protection of nature, continuity of life, confused attitude to nature, confused. Okay, and these are the different pictures.
Now listen and answer questions 25 to 30.
I'm just going to make this a bit smaller so we can zoom it out a bit. Sorry, the computer's a bit slow at the moment. I don't know why. Okay. That's better. All right, listen.
One part of the project I'm unsure about is where we choose some paintings of birds and say what they mean to us. Like, I chose a painting of a falcon by Landseer. I like it because the bird's standing there with his head turned to one side.
Okay, so and by the way, this is going to go in the same order. Okay, so he's talking about the falcon by an artist called Landseer. And it's turning its head to one side. Okay, and what's the personal message or meaning for the bird turning its head to one side?
But he seems to be staring straight at you. But I can't just say it's a bit scary, can I?
You could talk about the possible danger suggested by the bird's look.
The possible danger, so straight away the word threat comes out to me. Potential, the word possible. Okay, so both of those, possible and threat plus danger. and I'm going to go with what she's. Actually, let's listen because she's suggesting this. He might disagree. Let's listen.
Oh, okay.
There's a
Oh, okay. So straight away, he agrees, although a little reluctantly, but he still agrees.
picture of a fishhawk by Audubon I like. It's swooping over the water with a fish in its talons.
Okay, and talons. I mean, it's not an important word, but it's the claws of a bird. Okay, and the fish is in the claws of this bird. Okay, and this fish hawk.
And with great black wings which take up most of the picture.
So you could discuss it in relation to predators and food chains?
Predators and food chains, continuity of life looks like he might be referring to. So birth, death, rebirth, you know, the egg, that's continuity, the circular spiral of nature.
Well, actually, I think I'll concentrate on the impression of rapid motion it gives.
Okay, so his suggestion first of all, but remember it's personal. So what does she personally want to do with it? And she's talking about rapid motion, fast movement, rapid with the word fast. Okay.
Right.
Do you know that picture of a kingfisher by Van Gogh? It's perching on a reed growing near a stream.
Yes, it's got these beautiful blue and red and black shades.
I've actually chosen it because I saw a real kingfisher once when I was little. I was out walking with my grandfather, and I've never forgotten it.
Okay, so she's mentioning her grandfather when she was a child. So that sounds like something about a childhood memory. Let's see what he says.
Oh, so we can use a personal link?
Sure.
Okay.
He's checking. Are we allowed to use a personal link? Yes, you are, of course. Therefore, she's saying, yes, I'm going to use it as a personal memory. That's allowed in this project.
There's a portrait called William Wells. I can't remember the artist, but it's a middle-aged man who's just shot a bird. And his expression and the way he's holding the bird in his hand suggests he's not sure about what he's done.
He's not sure about. There's the key word there, confused. Not sure about. Okay. Does she agree?
To me, it's about how ambiguous people are in the way they exploit the natural world.
Interesting. There's Gauguin's picture.
Okay, and she just says interesting, so he's gonna be happy with her response there and carry on with that. Gauguin,
Virumati. He did it in Tahiti.
Tahiti. Okay.
It's a woman with a white bird behind her that is eating a lizard. And what I'm interested in is what idea this bird refers to. Apparently, it's a reference to the never-ending cycle of existence.
Oops, now I've got a problem because we didn't use F. Okay, we were going to use F, but that's when he I think it was, yeah, we almost used F. I thought it had been used here, but we didn't. So the circular, what did you say? Circular. Let's go back a bit.
It's a reference to the never-ending cycle of existence.
Never-ending cycle. Okay, continuity of life. Life is existence. So cycle of existence. Okay. And the last one.
Wow. I chose a portrait of a little boy, Giovanni de' Medici. He's holding a tiny bird in one fist. I like the way he's holding it carefully so he doesn't hurt it.
Oh, right.
Okay, so he's holding it carefully. We've only got really a few left, B and G. So hope for the future and protection of nature. So I'm assuming he's going to go with protection of nature here.
Right.
Okay. Protection of nature, carefully, the word carefully. Okay, again, quite a tricky one as well, this exercise. You have to, for G, for example, you have to really see the quite distant relationship between holding a bird carefully and protection of nature, because you could also be holding it to keep it from running away and then eat it, you know. Sometimes when it's not always clear, right? But that's the end of that. Let's just check.
That is the end of part 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers to part 3.
To part 3, okay, and that's when you would check your answers very quickly, because you need to be getting ready for part 4, which will come later. All right, I'm just going to pause the video quickly, and then we're going to check what that word was. Okay, there's the word there. Much less use. So I was right. Less use than. Much less use than the trip. Youth. Okay. I'm South African, so I don't think I've ever used the word use in this way before. It's much less use. It was use. It was less use. Okay, that's a very key word there. And they are using it in a way that I wouldn't ever use personally. So something to be aware of in the future, that sometimes they do use. Well, anyway, from this we know that she's talking about the Natural History Museum. I liked the stuff about the evolution there, and notice here they've given us a full stop, suggesting that there's something new coming later on about the workshop sessions. Suggesting that those are separate things, but certainly when he's speaking, it sounds more like there's a semicolon there, so it's connected. The intonation suggests it's connected. And I think I was also thrown off by Dr. Fletcher, because there are professors, doctors, who work in Natural History Museums. So I was straight away assuming that those are connected, but apparently not. Okay, so yeah, there's a tricky bit there that I wasn't, particularly happy about. If I was doing part 3 and I was getting flustered, because you know what happens. You do part 3, you're flustered, you mess up one question, you're going to be thinking about that when you get to the most difficult part, which is part 4, and it's going to throw you off, which is very frustrating to have this sort of difficulty in part 3 with the way they use these unusual words, and don't really help you with unusual intonation that suggests the two subjects are connected. Okay, but there we go. That's part 3, one of the trickiest part 3s I've done, actually, personally. But I hope that's useful, and I'll see you in the next video.